Hello everyone, Blue Star Saber here once again to do another review of Star Wars The Bad Batch, the second season's fourth episode, Faster, also the overall 20th episode of the season. Last week we followed the adventures of Crosshair and Cody, and the aftermath of their journey as Cody questioned the matter of the Empire. Where will the series lead to next? We're about to find out in this episode, and at the beginning of the episode, we're back at Sid's Parlor in Ord Mantell, where you see Omega and let's see, Omega and Wrecker. I can't believe I forgot Wrecker's name. He's like my favorite. Oh, I'm bad today. I am sorry. Let's see, and they're playing a game of Darjack, from episode 4 against each other, and of course, Omega wins because, well, we saw that she was a pro in the last season and managed to pay off the debt to Sid and all that stuff. But and that means that she wins 2 cartels of Mantell mix, but Wrecker wants to do best 2 out of 3, which. Or a final round, all or nothing, which I do like this little play together that the two are having, the bonding and all that stuff they have. Though I also like that eventually this gives Omega an idea that is pretty risky, but yeah. but yeah. Anyway, we learned that Hunter and Echo are delivering 50 cases of something called Nerf Nuggets, which apparently first appeared in the novel Heir to the Jedi, in which, from what I can tell by the Wikipedia's quotes that they used for the thing, it's apparently something that Han and Chewie are arguing over. But yeah, I know it seems like Chewie likes them at least, but it seems to be some sort of meat. But yeah, either way, there's probably some cargo they can have delivered legally, I guess. But who knows? But yeah. But this gives us an explanation on why we won't be seeing a Hunter or Echo today. I mean, in today's episode, meaning that we're only going to see. Even though we return to our main group of the Bad Batch, we're only going to see half the cast members, and I do actually like that, to be honest. I mean, having 5 main characters and all in one episode all the time can be quite difficult, and sometimes it might work, especially what appears to be more of a, this is going to be more of a fillerish episode, not a very plot-heavy episode from the looks of things. I think in many ways it works. It gives more focus on our remaining 3 characters with Tech, Omega and Wrecker, and whatever they're doing, and while Hunter and Echo are doing something else. For we know, next episode we'll learn. We'll probably see that maybe their adventure, or maybe the aftermath of their mission and all that stuff. But anyway, Sid ends up telling the members of the Bad Batch that that she has a job for them, that she requires them, arguably as bodyguards, as they are accompanied to the planet called Sofa Tama, which I think is a new planet, from what I understand. It's a new planet introduced by the Bad Batch. There's no history before it, so it's its own original planet, and it seems to be a apparently seems to be one of those sort of like gangster-like planets, or one of those places you don't want to be by yourself, where you see a couple of Galtels, Pantorians, Ocanas, and Rhodians. So yeah, and they are watching a race and all that stuff, and apparently it's from what I can tell, I think it's called. I think riot races or something, but yeah, it seems to be like this little speeder-like thing where we have like blasters on the back and forth. Not like those big things like where you shoot and then draws. It's kind of like a sort of like a. It's sort of like pod racing, but without like two pod. Is he driving like two pods, thing like this? A small little speed thing, speeder like a land speeder, if you will, with a few gadget things. It's kind of like I suppose you could say, if I have to compare it, like sort of like what you get from Wacky Racers. Well, maybe not wacky, not exactly wacky as Wacky Racers, but you know those little gadgets they had to over maneuver each other and all that stuff, but with blasters. So yeah, a bit more of a death race. In many ways, it's clear that this episode is going to be a homage to like the Phantom Menace, and which I'm fine with the pod race scene, which was arguably one of the two scenes in the films that have often been praised by that movie, regardless of whatever people have about the rest of it. But the other being, of course, the famous Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight. But yeah, and during this we see a race between someone called Teo against someone called Hyper Rod and ends up winning it and all that stuff. And this is who Sid is betting on. And she ends up meeting him, and then we end up learning that Teo is actually a sort of blue-like droid who has a sort of like flippy head, if you will. I mean, it's a new design from what I can tell. Let's see, yeah. And from my understanding, and from what I could pretty much notice, the character is voiced none other by, let's see, Ben Schwartz, who apparently, not his first role in Star Wars, but, provided one of the voices for BB-8 in Star Wars Force Awakens alongside Bill Harder, who plays a stormtrooper, but you most likely probably remember him as playing Dewey Duck in the 2017 DuckTales reboot, Leonardo in Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and of course, his most probably famous role playing the voice of the live-action Sonic the Hedgehog. So yeah, I sort of geeked out when I see him, and it's like another like a cocky blue character that he's sort of voicing and all that stuff. So yeah, that was fun to see. But anyway, eventually he's clearly cocky and he's like very full of himself. But yeah, let's see, and it gets a bit of a clash just between like Ritzy Tech and him, as he's a bit surprised that it's a droid, but and they clash a bit. I do like that sort of dynamic. Anyways, I want Teo to be like a recurring character. But yeah. But they end up being visited by a Dalturian criminal called Grinjan Megala, who has a past with Sid. And for those who don't recall what a Duturn is, it's that big muscle horn-like chin alien you see in The Force Awakens, and in like that cantina in the film. I've forgotten. I can't believe I've forgotten like the 1,000-year-old woman's name. But yeah, sort of Yoda-ish stand-in for that movie. But yeah, and someone called Jet. Let's see, Jet Famin, a Noscasian. One of the aliens that you saw in the Phantom Menace that was racing against Little Annie and all that stuff. So yeah. Let's see, Phantom Menace and references all around. So yeah, they clearly end up having some sort of bet and all that stuff, and they clearly have an antagonistic relationship, and it's like the history. And I do like the voice of like Grenjan Melegi and all that stuff. Let's see, they bet and all that stuff they have, and the race goes on, and Teo does quite well. He's lead against him, and then some of the other races against is a B1 battle droid and protocol droid. Let's see. And apparently that, but he ends up losing because of another racer called Roscoe Bix. Let's see. Ends up, actually ends up shooting someone at one of the crowd. It's like, this race is nothing like pod racing. It's like the audience can actually it's pretty much pod racing, but the audience can get shot at. So it's just like that slow fall that's kind of like dark humor, but it's kind of funny at the same time. But yeah. But interesting enough, there's one bit of the race where there's this left side thing which you're not supposed to do because it's like a death race thing. But yeah. Anyway, just as like Let's see. Tails about to try and cross the thing. The guy from behind, Sabbath grabs him, and then Jet Furman uses the buzzsaw to thing. It feels like it's kind of like the two are working together to cheat kind of thing, and yeah, I would expect that from someone from the underworld. And it's like, oh my god, Tails loose, Sid is in trouble now, and all that stuff. So yeah, this is the setup, pretty much, where the Bad Batch need to help Sid out in order to like before she gets dealt with like this gangster, if you will. Whoops, and let's see. She doesn't have the money to pay him back right now, but he wants to dealt with and all that stuff. And this is where Omega comes in from earlier, learning from Wrecker that let's see, how about we race again, and let's see if you win double or nothing, and let's see, and if we lose, and if they win, they get Sid, and you forgive the debt thing, and he takes Sid as insurance because it's like smart. It's like don't trust the guy and all that stuff. But yeah, let's see, and they better pay up. So yeah, so and I do like how Omega's taking lessons from like the members of the Bad Batch about things, but let's see, this time, at least with Tech and Wrecker, it's like she learned the wrong lesson here, and I doubt the Hunter would approve. So that'll be an interesting conversation if it comes up. So I quite like that. So yeah, but I do like how Omega's the one to rush to like Sid's defense because I think she's the one that's probably best bonded with Sid, given the fact that let's see they work together to play a let's see Sabacc game and all that stuff. So yeah, but anyway, you have then Tech and Wrecker scavenging the parts of like the speeder, fixing it and all that stuff. While Tech mostly trying to face let's see Teo, and there's a few funny bits of like, my arms and legs. It's kind of funny and all that stuff. Just seeing her, and he's still cocky that he can win and all that stuff. But Tech is trying to let's see. Let's see that they need to try and win the race. Wrecker just wonders why they just can't just leave. But Teo points out that the last time someone didn't pay up, they ended up going to the Doomback Seas. So, as Tech points out, they don't want to have the hustle of like gritty gangsters and thugs coming after them. So they got to win this race. So I do like that. But it's like even though the Empire hasn't quite tracked them down yet, let's see, they still can't be forced to make enemies with the underworld at the same time. I mean, granted, the Empire thinks that they're currently dead. They can't. So there's that. But anyway, let's see. But anyway, Mowgli ends up hosting Sid and all that stuff, and you can clearly tell the history they have about how they both had a shady past of being gangsters or something like that. Sid says she's reformed, and you could argue that she seems to be firms of those in the underworld a lot more decent than others. I mean, given the fact that she ended up working with Jedi, but she clearly had a more shadier past than we let's see realize, and it's the first hints on that. And let's see, and Granny Malaji ends up commenting that let's see she hasn't fully changed, so that is arguably foreshadowing for probably a future subplot where arguably the Bad Batch and Sid either part ways, or they finally make amends and or they finally end up opening up to each other fully and trusting. Who knows? It's very interesting where we'll go with Sid's character. We know that's probably at some point the Bad Batch will be breaking off. We just don't know yet. But yeah. Anyway, as let's see. Let's see, after like a third race is going on, let's see, the Bad Batch are preparing with Teo and all that stuff. With them, of course, some of them being worried that Teo might be fit to race, particularly Wrecker, but of course, Teo, and I'm loving the personality, is like, of course, it's an obvious answer and all that stuff. But Tech ends up analyzing the race and ends up giving Teo some calculations and advice. But Teo just ignores it, saying nothing is better than like strategy and skill, and it's quite interesting how Joy's cocky attitude clashes with, and I like how it clashes with Texan analysts and all that stuff, even when he points out it's flawed. And this really angers Teo and ends up storming up to him, telling him to argue a bit. But he ends up recklessly running onto the race course and gets crashed by another speeder. Let's see. With let's see, it appears to be Brosco Bix, who I think was working for let's see, Grin Milegi, which probably implies that this was intentional because, the guy comes in, and I wouldn't be surprised as well, gangsters and all that stuff. And that is actually a kind of clever thing to for a gangster to do, sabotage the racer, so forfeit, so pay up now. But of course, Tech steps in and volunteers there. Let's see, do the race and all that stuff. But of course, Sid promises and all that stuff, and yeah. And you can honestly probably tell by now from my avatar that, okay, this is why I intentionally did it, because it's clear that the focus of this episode is a Tech episode, in which, okay, a filler episode, but it's nice the fact that Tech is finally getting the focus and all that stuff, being the center of an episode. The Bad Batch, and of course, are a bit worried that Tech can't do this, but he has because he's never done it before, but he is confident and all that stuff. So yeah. So we end up getting to a race, and there's at least, let's see, 12 races and all that stuff, and the announcers are, of course, the Riot Champion Jet Thurman, Bosco the Mad Bomber, Bricks the Steel Claw, Kane the Vicious, Vid Satani, Hoxon the Wargome, Taxin Quick Draw Crazer, the Trickster, Flash Raptor, and the Hyper Rod. Interesting, some of these are like separatist droids, some of them protocol droids, some of them aliens from the Phantom Menace, and one of them is a B1 droid's head on a protocol droid, and probably is clearly a reference to C3PO and all that stuff, and from what happened in Attack of the Clones, where his head got knocked off a bit and got attached to a B1 droid, while a B1 droid got attached to his body, and that's like, I like these little references. So we got now Attack of the Clone reference. So yeah, I'm liking these references to like the prequel trilogy films and all that stuff. So I think they're like nice to see. They're not like major in-your-face cameos and all that stuff, but have been a bit of criticism from the latest Star Wars media. But it's less like an old nod and like, oh, I know that. Oh, I can see what this is referencing to and all that stuff. But then, of course, Tech gets announced last, and the spectators and the, let's see, like, what, really? Seriously, that's this guy's name and all that stuff? Let's see. And it's clear that no one has confidence that he can win and all that. So it's like, who's this guy and all that stuff? But it's interesting that Tech is using his name, to be honest, because if it was me, I'd probably use a made-up name just in case the Empire comes to this planet, goes through the racing history, and then like, wait, Tech, that's the claim of the clone. But then again, the Empire seems to have a lack of care for the names of clones. So, but either way, let's see. I do like how to raise the stakes and to show how much of an underdog Tech is. You have the whole crowd questioning when it's like pays off a bit later. Anyway, the race begins. You see Jet Venom using dirty tricks and smoke bombs and all that stuff to knock out some of the other competitors and all that stuff. During the race, Tech is last, and this worries Wrecker and Wrecker, Sid, and Omega. Let's see, it's not like the Phantom Menace where Anakin was stopped for a bit and then had to race up and catch up, but yeah. And let's see. But Tech, of course, is playing with his strategy and all that stuff. Let's see, and I think one of the racers, called Quasar, gets taken out and all that stuff. Let's see. And during which there's a bit where Tech looks like he's going to the left tunnel, but instead goes to the one in the middle, but asks Omega to analyze it, which clearly assigns that he's probably going to go down there later. And I kind of knew where this episode was going, really. And during the second, let's see, lap, he ends up dropping all his blasters, and this worries like the crew and Sid and all that stuff. When you see from the spectators, and it's like, oh, what he's doing, and it's like he's getting rid of unnecessary weight, in which I do like how he's strategizing to increase his speed, and people are questioning it and all that stuff. But it's like a smart move, but it's also kind of risky, given the fact that you no longer have weapons to fight back, which we see later. So you only have nothing but your skill of the speed and all that stuff, and your ability to dodge. Eventually, he goes down the let's see, down the left track. Let's see. It's apparently the track is called the Nephelis Express to Lufa Minor or something, but let's see, I don't know, it's just a phrase, but it's not actually Lufa Minor really, but I do like the reference to the place. Let's see, so and he ends up being chased by that Bricks fella who's trying to sabotage him again, shooting from behind and all that stuff. And the tunnel is clearly like there's a bit on the bottom where let's see, there's no like let's see, no panel things where you see from the rest of the race, because to describe it's sort of insides feel like one of those short tunnels that you might have seen maybe in Attack of the Clones. I don't know, it kind of felt like that, but maybe it's like from the Boba Fett game. I don't know, I can't recall where it reminds me of specifically, but yeah. But yeah, let's see. I like how Tech is able to circle around the top and stay on the top long enough to get over to the other bit of the track to catch up speed, because, well, this place is the shortest lane and allow him to catch up to the first place, while the other one just falls down and, let's see, to his doom. Let's see. Sort of like a death race, if you will, sort of going with the stakes of the death of this being sort of like a death race of some sort, or this riot race, if you will. But anyway, eventually Tech catch ups with like Jet, Vernon, and they try to do the same, and the racer behind trying to grab him tries to do the same sabotage they did to Teo last time, but Tech, of course, is prepared for it, gets out of way, and they end up grabbing each other, crashing, and Tech ends up winning the race and getting cheers from the crowd. And it's like, I just loved how that was just a callback from the first bit, which makes sense, actually. Let's see, where Tech succeeds, where Teo fails, due to strategy, and ends up becoming a champion, if you will, freeing Sid and all that stuff. But yeah, so yeah, I do like how Tech, this is his moment of glory, if you will. Let's see, but anyway, let's see, with Omega and Wrecker hugging, let's see, Tech with Wrecker mentioning he had his doubts. I do like that, but they're just happy he won and all that stuff. But anyway, they go to meet Milagi and his two goons, which is Herodian and Gamorrean and all that stuff, you know, Jabba's bodyguard and the pig aliens and all that stuff. And I really like how Sid ends up thanking the clothes and end up saying how she owes him the favor. So it would be interesting to see which episode that will be taken out. But I do like the bond that they sort of have. But interesting enough, you kind of have Jet Vernon being a bit of a racer. Looks like aiming for his gun. It looks like he's going to try and shoot one of them. But Gritzy behind their back. But Gruner Millard, who interesting has a sense of honor and says like, I lost the bet. Let's see, you won fair and square. So deal's a deal, if you will, and will not let his men break any promises and all that stuff. But it's interesting that he ends up talking to the clones, but Sid is out of, let's see, he starts walking out and all that stuff, and ends up commenting on their loyalty and all that stuff, but claims that they've put the wrong loyalty to the person, like said, telling them they can't really trust her and to watch their back. Which see, as the Bad Batch members walk away, probably thinking about what the Ledge said. So it's like, while he may end up respecting them and all that stuff, let's see, he might have planted the seeds of doubt in them with like Sid, or maybe start to ask them to question Sid's background at the very least. It is interesting where this little plot line will go. Arguably, probably their departure, but yeah. At the moment, Sid at least owes him something, and the Bad Batch get away scot-free, but clearly it is building something. But that's the end of the episode. Interesting, and it is interesting. Anyway, my overall thoughts. I like the fact that, of course, you don't have all the members of the Bad Batch together. This allows more focus on some of the other members. And this time, let's see, you get the pair of Tech, Wrecker, and Omega. Let's see, I do like, let's see, the sort of big brother sister like bond you have with Omega playing games with, let's see, Wrecker. He doesn't really do much except provide muscle here. That's the only downside of this episode. Let's see, Wrecker's just more of like muscle, really, carrying bits. And the humor, which says, found pieces of like Teo and all that stuff. So, yeah. But it is interesting that, let's see, Omega ends up, let's see, getting the idea of double or nothing from Wrecker. So it's like, he's sort of being the older sibling advice. Well, technically Omega's older, but still. But yeah. But interesting. But I do like the fact that this episode is on Tech. Whereas we haven't had an episode focused on Tech in the first season. We had bits and pieces where you analysed stuff, in my understanding, and maybe played a second major role, but not really the main focus. Granted, it doesn't expand too much on his character, but at least not much of character growth, but it does expand on like what we do know of his character, and that is, of course, his calculations and strategies. As people doubt him and all that stuff, given like be it the Teo, the Bad Batch, and Sid and all that stuff, but he pulls through, and I do like how he ends up analyzing the races, how to find the shortcuts, what he needs to let's see, drop and do it. And he did quite well for a first timer. So yeah, who knows? He might give, let's see, Anakin a run for his money. Let's see, and all that stuff. And yeah. Teo, of course, for me is sort of like the highlight of this episode. Just seeing Ben Sawatsa, let's see, voicing a character from Star Wars, even though apparently he did already. But it's nice to see him in like voicing another blue character. Let's see, this time a blue sort of like droid, well, turquoise really, but he's got his, and I do like that droid has like the cocky attitude and all that stuff. And I would have really loved it if he ended up being, a recurring character, at the very least in Sid's witsy bar for a few things, but or become the Bad Batch droid companion. But at the moment, that's clearly not going to be the case. And because, well, sadly, he got destroyed. Oh, well, too much of a good thing. But I guess they can't add too many ritzy voice actors to the cast and all that stuff. But I do like how it was broken up with a phone and then crashed again. Clearly sabotage, but yeah. Anyway, Sid and let's see, Grim, Milage, and all that stuff. Let's see. I thought he was an interesting sort of antagonist gangster. He clearly has a sense of having his races like sabotage and even like other races either on the field or off the field and crash, or at least implications and all that stuff. And the fact that he seems to have a deep history with Sid. And we get to learn that Sid is probably not, while as far as we can tell from Underworld Dealers, isn't exactly necessarily the worst, if you will. Let's see. Or at least well, she's like an informant, really. Well, she let's see, I really should probably call her informant an Underworld Dealer, sorry. But while she seems to be like at least decent compared to the rest of them, particularly like what we've seen with her and Omega and how she seems to look out for the clones, but it's clear that she has some shady past, and enough that let's see, Milage ends up warning the Bad Batch that she's not necessarily trustworthy, and like I've said, probably, clash later and all that stuff. So yeah, that'll be interesting build up. Other than that, I enjoyed, of course, all the pod race sort of like, well, the riot race. I mean, not as good. It doesn't sound as great as pod racing, to be honest. But yeah, it's clearly that's what the homages do to all the cameos, like I mentioned, some of the aliens from Phantom Menace. Let's see, an homage to like 3PO and Attack of the Clones. So yeah, that was fun. Granted, pod race is much more better, probably much more faster and exciting. But of course, that had like a most of the second act to build up of, and well, honestly, no, granted, some felt like that probably took too much time from Phantom Menace's plot, but I did feel like the build up for that was probably much better done here. But I will say that it was still a pretty good race, and it is interesting to see different sort of sports and events in the Star Wars galaxy, even though they only appear in like one thing and come up later. But who knows? But I wouldn't mind if we get another pod racing game soon. But yeah, overall, I'd say this episode's like a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 at best, maybe like a 7 lowest score. I mean, it's not a bad episode. I mean, granted, this one might be an episode some say you might skip, but if you want to see like let's see a sort of homage to like the Phantom Menace and all that stuff with racing and all that stuff, and you want to see more tech, let's see, I'd say you'd probably enjoy it. So yeah, overall, a pretty good episode, and I'm looking forward to next episode, which is called the Entombed and all that stuff. So that might imply some sort of graveyard thing, or maybe some ruins, like maybe they're doing some sort of Indiana Jones adventure. For all we know, it could be for the Hunter and Echo episode, and we see what they're doing. So yeah, it'll be interesting. So hopefully we'll find out. Let's see. Hopefully we'll see next episode. And for those who end up listening or to this review, I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. I am Blue Star Saber, signing off. May the force be with you, and goodbye.